which will be pages 7 and 8. We're going to go through most of this, and then we're going to come back, and in groups, you guys are going to do question 3A and 3B with your group. When you do, here are the things that you're looking for. And underneath each of them, I want you to write the vertex. I want you to say whether it opens up or down. And I want you to write the stretch or the compress. Okay? So write that for each of them, then graph them for A and B there. Okay? For 2-4, it says, in the previous problem, you figured out having an equation for a parabola in graphing form, which is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, allows you to determine the vertex. Sometimes you'll see it called graphing form. Sometimes you'll see it called vertex form. They kind of go back and forth. Okay, it'll also give you the orientation and the stretch factor of the parabola. Furthermore, knowing these attributes allows you to make a graph without having to make a table. How can you make a graph without a table when the equation is given in standard form? Otherwise, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And they ask us to consider the function y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 30. And so the next couple questions are all about this particular equation. They're just sort of breaking it down into super small steps. Okay, so for part A, it says, what is the orientation of the graph? That is, does it open upward or open downward? How could you change the equation to make the graph open the opposite way? Okay, this one's kind of obvious. It's positive, so it's going to open up. Why? Because the A is greater than 0. In this case, it's a 2, right? Everybody see that positive 2 there? You don't normally write a positive sign, but if you want to, you could draw a little plus sign in there, so you're like, oh yeah, it's positive, it's going to open up, okay? What could you do to make it to open the opposite way? You simply change that 2 to negative 2. You would slip a negative sign in there to make it open downward, okay? So part B says, what is the stretch factor of that graph? And justify your answer. So the stretch factor is 2. Why? Because it's the coefficient of the x squared. And that's all you have to say about it. All right? Any questions on that? No? Anybody still writing? No? Okay. Flip over to the top of the next page. Top of the next page, it says, can you identify the vertex of y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 30 by looking at the equation? If not, talk with your group about strategies you could use to find the vertex form using a table or graphing calculator, and then apply your new strategy to the problem. If your team is stuck, consider parts I through triple I below. So little letter I says, what are the x-intercepts of the parabola? Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to factor out that 2. How do you know you can factor out a 2? Well, each of the terms in that trinomial, or in that quadratic, is a multiple of 2. And that's the most common one, okay? And it's usually going to be like 2, 3, 5, sometimes 7, rarely larger than that. But you're going to want to look for, first see if whatever the leading coefficient is a factor of all of the terms. Okay? If it is, factor it out. Then you're going to take the x squared plus 2x minus 15, and you can factor it to x plus 5 and x minus 3. Okay? This is called completely factored, completely simplified. They ask you to factor or they ask you to simplify, this is what they want, okay? You can take each of these binomials, set them equal to 0, and it's going to get you 2 points. It's going to get you negative 5, 0, and it's going to get you 3, 0. If you have a coordinate plane, graph those 2 points. You're going to put a point at negative 5, 0. You're going to put a point could actually, from there, take your fingers and count your way into the middle, right? Or you can use this averaging method, okay? So the averaging method, you take the -5 and the 3, add them together, divide by 2, and you should get -1. That means your vertex is going to be at -1, comma, some number, okay? You need to find out that some number, okay? How do you find that number? You take the -1 and you plug it back into the original equation, okay? So the original equation, and you plug it in, you have 2 times the -1 squared. The parentheses are important right here because think of order of operations, okay? You want to do the exponent first before you multiply. And then you want to multiply before you add or subtract, okay? So just watch your order of operations on these, okay? Plug in the -1 here and plug in the -1 here, and then simplify and follow the order of operations correctly. You'll get 2 minus 4 minus 30, which is -32. Okay? Which means you're going to have a vertex at -1, -32. That -32 makes it way down there, okay? Because you'll go 1 to the left, and then you'll go down 32. That's pretty far. That means you might possibly need to scale your y-axis, right? Because 32 is a lot. So on your graph below, I scaled by what? 2s? I scaled by -2, -4, -6. If you went by 1s, -1, -2, -3, it's going to run off that graph. Okay? So when you get a large, either positive number or large, either negative number, you will likely need to scale your axis. Okay? So I went to -1, -32, put my vertex right there, okay? And then to find another point, I plugged in 0. 0 is usually super easy to plug in because 0 squared is 0. Any number times 0 is 0. If you add 0, it stays the same. 0 is always easy, right? Okay? So 0 squared is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. So we have 0 plus 0 minus 30. 0 plus 0 minus 30 makes it 0, -30. So I went 0, -30, put a point, which means if I go the other direction, because parabolas are symmetrical, right? I can just put a point right there, which is at -2, -30. Okay? Then you just can draw in your parabola. We also have these points way back up here, right? We had -5, 0, and 3, 0. So I plotted -5, 0, and +3, 0. Kind of helps me keep my parabola drawn correctly. All right. And the last question says, verify that both forms of the equation are equivalent. So I took the x minus 1 times the x minus 1, which was the vertex form, because the vertex was at back up here. The vertex was at -1, -32. So the -1 squared minus the 32. FOIL that out or use the little box thing. That gives you x squared plus 2x plus 1. Then distribute that 2 to get 2x squared plus 4x plus 2 minus the 32. And then these two will obviously combine. And 2 minus 32 is -30. Okay? So you're going to finish. The only thing you need to do in your group was the first 2 questions on page 7, the A and the B. And then you can start the review preview problems. All right. Any questions on any of that? Why won't this stop?